What if I told you there's a natural supplement sitting quietly on pharmacy shelves right now, one that researchers are calling nature's Ozempic, that may lower your creatinine levels as effectively as prescription medication, but with far fewer side effects? That supplement is Berberine, and it's been used in traditional medicine for over 2,000 years. But here's the conflict nobody talks about: your doctor might never mention it. Not because it doesn't work, the clinical trials are there, but because it simply doesn't go through the same billion-dollar pipeline as pharmaceutical drugs. That silence may be costing kidney patients precious time. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how Berberine targets the two biggest drivers of rising creatinine, diabetes and high cholesterol, the precise dosage protocol, the safest supplement combinations, and the side effects you absolutely need to know before starting. Before we dive in, drop a comment right now. How old are you? Where are you watching from? And what is your current creatinine level? I personally read every single comment and will answer your questions directly below this video. What few people know about Berberine is that it doesn't just help with blood sugar the way most supplements vaguely claim to. It works through a very specific molecular pathway, one that scientists didn't fully understand until the early 2000s, and that pathway connects directly to why your creatinine keeps climbing. Here's what's actually happening inside your body. Berberine's primary active compound is an isoquinoline alkaloid extracted from plants like Berberis aristata and Coptis chinensis. Once absorbed, it activates an enzyme called AMPK, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. Think of AMPK as your body's master metabolic switch. When Berberine flips that switch on, your liver receives a clear signal to stop overproducing glucose, and your muscle cells become dramatically more responsive to insulin. The result is lower fasting blood sugar and a significantly flatter glucose spike after every meal. Now here's the part that directly matters for your kidneys. When blood sugar stays chronically high, it damages the tiny filtering units inside your kidneys called glomeruli. That damage causes them to leak and scar over time, which is why diabetic kidney disease is the single leading cause of rising creatinine worldwide. Controlling that blood sugar isn't just about avoiding complications, it is the most direct lever you have to slow creatinine progression. The science behind this is not theoretical. A meta-analysis published in the journal Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine reviewed 27 randomized controlled trials and found that Berberine reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of 19.83 mg per deciliter and HbA1c by 0.71% compared to placebo. A separate landmark study published in Metabolism compared Berberine directly against Metformin in type 2 diabetic patients over 3 months. The result was nearly identical blood sugar control between the two groups, but Berberine produced significantly fewer gastrointestinal side effects in the long term. For older adults with kidney disease, this comparison matters enormously. Metformin is actually contraindicated, meaning doctors are told not to prescribe it once your eGFR drops below 30, because the kidneys can no longer clear it safely. Berberine carries no such restriction in current evidence, which makes it one of the very few blood sugar tools that remains accessible even in later stages of CKD. In terms of how you take it, Berberine is available in standard capsule form and should always be taken with food or immediately before a meal to match the timing of your glucose rise. Taking it on an empty stomach significantly increases the chance of digestive discomfort, which is the most common complaint among new users. Now, knowing the right dose is where most people get this completely wrong, and honestly, the specific combination protocol that makes Berberine dramatically more effective for kidney patients is something very few videos actually explain in detail. Coming up next, I'm going to give you the exact milligram breakdown, the precise timing window before meals, and the two supporting supplements that can amplify everything berberine does for your blood sugar and your cholesterol at the same time. Don't skip that part. So now you understand why berberine works at the cellular level. But understanding the mechanism is only half the equation. The other half, the part that actually determines whether you get results or just expensive urine, is knowing exactly how to take it, when to take it, and what to pair it with. This is where most people make costly mistakes, and I want to make sure you are not one of them. Let's start with the foundation. The dosage that appears most consistently across clinical research is 500 mg taken 3 times per day, always before a meal, for a total of 1,500 mg daily. That timing is not arbitrary. Berberine has a relatively short half-life in the bloodstream, roughly 3 to 4 hours, which means a single large dose fades before your next meal even begins. Spacing it across 3 meals keeps a steady concentration in your system throughout the day, matching the moments when your blood sugar is most likely to spike. Taking it 15 to 30 minutes before you eat gives it just enough time to reach your gut lining and begin activating AMPK before glucose from your food starts entering the bloodstream. One practical note for older adults: if your appetite is smaller and you only eat 2 main meals per day, the third dose can be taken with a light snack rather than skipped entirely. What you want to avoid is taking it on a completely empty stomach with no food to follow, because that is the single most reliable way to trigger the nausea and stomach discomfort that causes people to quit within the first week. Now here is where the strategy gets genuinely interesting. Berberine alone is effective. But when you build the right combination around it, the results for kidney patients become significantly more meaningful. There are 2 distinct combination protocols depending on your primary condition, and they serve very different purposes. If your main concern is diabetes driving your creatinine up, the smartest stack you can build centers on 3 supporting ingredients. Number 1, Banaba leaf extract. Banaba contains an active compound called corosolic acid, which works through a completely different pathway than berberine. While berberine activates AMPK to suppress glucose production in the liver, corosolic acid enhances glucose transporter type 4 activity, essentially helping your cells pull sugar out of the bloodstream more efficiently. More importantly for kidney patients specifically, Banaba has demonstrated antioxidant properties that directly reduce oxidative stress inside renal tubular cells, the very cells responsible for filtering waste and regulating creatinine clearance. A study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that corosolic acid reduced fasting blood glucose by approximately 10% within 2 weeks in type 2 diabetic subjects. For a kidney patient already dealing with inflammation and cellular stress, that antioxidant protection is not a bonus feature, it is a core reason to include it. Number 2, Chromium picolinate. Chromium enhances insulin receptor sensitivity at the cellular membrane level, meaning your body needs to produce less insulin to achieve the same blood sugar response. Less circulating insulin means less inflammatory pressure on the kidneys over time. Research published in Diabetes Technology and Therapeutics found that 600 micrograms of chromium picolinate daily reduced insulin resistance markers by a statistically significant margin over 16 weeks in type 2 diabetic patients. Number 3, cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon specifically. The active compound here is cinnamaldehyde, which mimics insulin signaling and has been shown to slow gastric emptying, meaning glucose enters your bloodstream more gradually after meals. A meta-analysis in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics reviewed 10 randomized trials and found that cinnamon supplementation reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of 8.11 mg per deciliter. Always specify Ceylon cinnamon rather than cassia cinnamon when purchasing, because cassia contains high levels of coumarin, a compound that accumulates to potentially harmful levels in the body when taken daily as a supplement. Now, if your primary concern is high cholesterol driving cardiovascular stress on your kidneys, the combination shifts entirely. Number 4, niacin, vitamin B3. Berberine lowers LDL cholesterol by upregulating LDL receptors in the liver, forcing the liver to pull more LDL out of circulation. Niacin works through a different and complementary route. It directly suppresses the liver's production of VLDL, the precursor to LDL, and simultaneously raises HDL levels more effectively than almost any other non-prescription compound available. A major clinical review in the American Journal of Cardiology documented that niacin raised HDL cholesterol by 15 to 35% while lowering triglycerides by 20 to 50%. For kidney patients, high triglycerides accelerate the progression of CKD by promoting glomerular inflammation, so targeting both LDL and triglycerides simultaneously through this combination gives your kidneys significantly better protection than either compound alone. The standard approach is to use flush-free niacin or inositol hexanicotinate at 250 to 500 mg per day alongside your berberine doses, always with food to minimize flushing reactions. Here is something I want you to hold on to before we move forward. All 4 of these combinations have strong evidence behind them. But adding any one of them, especially alongside existing prescription medications, introduces a very real risk that most supplement videos completely gloss over. In the next section, I am going to be direct with you about exactly which drug interactions can make berberine dangerous, the specific symptoms that should make you stop immediately, and the one simple monitoring habit that takes 3 minutes per day and could genuinely save you from a serious complication. That part is not optional reading. Most people who research berberine online walk away worried about one thing: stomach discomfort. They read a few reviews, see the word nausea a couple of times, and either avoid it entirely or mentally prepare for a rough first week. And yes, digestive side effects are real. Constipation and stomach cramping affect roughly 20 to 35% of new users, particularly in the first 2 weeks as the gut microbiome adjusts to a compound that actively alters bacterial composition in the intestinal tract. Starting at 500 mg once daily for the first week before stepping up to the full 3-dose protocol significantly reduces this. Taking each dose with a full meal rather than immediately before it also helps for people who are particularly sensitive. But here is what nobody is warning you about clearly enough. The genuinely dangerous part of berberine for kidney patients is not the stomach discomfort. It is the drug interaction risk, and it is specific, measurable, and entirely preventable if you know what to look for. Berberine is a potent inhibitor of cytochrome P450 enzymes, particularly CYP3A4 and CYP2D6. These are the liver enzymes responsible for metabolizing a wide range of prescription medications. When berberine slows those enzymes down, your existing medications clear from your bloodstream more slowly than your doctor calculated when they wrote the prescription. The drug concentration in your blood rises higher than intended and stays elevated longer. For most medications, this is an inconvenience. For the 2 drug classes most commonly prescribed to kidney patients, it becomes genuinely hazardous. The first critical interaction involves diabetes medications. Berberine lowers blood sugar through AMPK activation, as we covered earlier. When you layer that effect on top of metformin, glipizide, insulin, or any other hypoglycemic agent, the combined blood sugar lowering can push your glucose below 70 mg per deciliter into clinical hypoglycemia. Symptoms include cold sweating, sudden confusion, hand tremors, and in severe cases, loss of consciousness. A pharmacokinetic study published in the European Journal of Clinical Pharmacology found that berberine co-administration increased plasma concentration of metformin by approximately 24%, which is a clinically meaningful increase that no patient should absorb without their doctor adjusting the prescription dose first. The second interaction involves blood pressure medications. Berberine has demonstrated mild but consistent antihypertensive effects through its ability to relax smooth muscle and arterial walls. When combined with ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or calcium channel blockers, all of which are extremely common prescriptions in CKD patients, the compounded effect can drop blood pressure below 90/60 mmHg. At that level, blood flow to the kidneys becomes insufficient, which is precisely the opposite of what you are trying to achieve. A review in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences confirmed that berberine reduced systolic blood pressure by an average of 7.5 mm of mercury across multiple trials, which sounds modest in isolation but is not modest when stacked on top of an existing antihypertensive regimen. The practical solution is not to avoid berberine. It is to treat starting berberine the same way you would treat starting a new prescription drug. That means informing your nephrologist or primary care physician before your first dose, not after a few weeks when you wonder why your blood pressure readings look strange. It also means keeping a daily health journal, and this part is genuinely simple, where you record your fasting blood glucose each morning and your blood pressure reading each evening. 2 numbers. 2 minutes, every day. That log gives your doctor the data they need to catch a problematic trend before it becomes an emergency, and it gives you concrete evidence that the protocol is actually working for your creatinine over time. If you are currently taking cyclosporin, which is prescribed in some kidney transplant and autoimmune kidney disease cases, berberine is contraindicated entirely until you have a direct conversation with your transplant team, because the CYP3A4 inhibition in that specific combination carries documented toxicity risk. Now, with all of that clearly on the table, I want to leave you with something genuinely encouraging. Because despite all of these precautions, the research on what berberine and niacin together can do for patients in the later stages of chronic kidney disease, including stage 4, is something that I think will genuinely surprise you. The final section pulls everything together and gives you the full picture of what natural support at this level actually looks like in practice. Here is the honest picture of what berberine and niacin are actually capable of when used correctly, not as a replacement for your medical treatment, but as a serious, evidence-backed layer running alongside it. For CKD patients, including those already at stage 4, the core problem is rarely one single thing. It is a cascade. High blood sugar damages glomeruli. Damaged glomeruli filter less efficiently. Poor filtration allows creatinine to accumulate. Simultaneously, elevated LDL and triglycerides inflame the arterial walls feeding your kidneys, reducing perfusion pressure over time. Berberine addresses the first part of that cascade through AMPK activation and glucose regulation. Niacin addresses the second part by suppressing VLDL production and raising HDL, the two lipid changes that most directly reduce vascular inflammation at the renal level. A clinical study published in the Chinese Journal of Integrative Medicine followed CKD patients using berberine supplementation over 24 weeks and recorded a statistically significant reduction in serum creatinine alongside measurable improvements in eGFR, meaning kidney filtration function actually improved, not just stabilized, in a subset of participants. That is the outcome most patients are told is impossible to achieve naturally at stage 3 and beyond. The mechanism is not magic. It is sustained metabolic pressure applied consistently over months through the right compounds at the right doses, monitored carefully and adjusted with your doctor's guidance. If you have watched this far, you now have a complete, Actionable framework. The next step is simple. Screenshot the dosage protocol from Section 3, bring it to your next nephrology appointment, and ask your doctor directly whether the combination is appropriate for your current medication list. That one conversation is where this goes from information to actual results. You started this video looking for answers. And what I hope you are leaving with is not just information but a genuine sense that you have more tools available to you than you probably realized this morning. Berberine and niacin will not reverse decades of kidney damage overnight. But the research is clear: consistent, targeted nutritional support applied at the right doses, at the right times, with the right combinations can meaningfully slow progression and, in some documented cases, actually improve filtration function. That is not a small thing. For a stage 4 CKD patient, that is everything. Your kidneys have been working silently for your entire life. They deserve the same consistency in return. If this video gave you something useful, please share it with someone who needs it. Leave your creatinine number and your stage in the comments. I read every single one and I will respond. Hit subscribe so you do not miss what is coming next, because the next video covers something most kidney patients are completely overlooking in their diet every single day. I will see you there.